He's been mourning his deceased wife for 5 years, but one day he came into his kitchen and saw flowers in a vase, the ones he took to her grave that very morning. Kate Martin was born and raised in a small town in southern Tennessee. Although her parents weren't exactly rich, they did everything they could to make sure their daughter had everything she needed. From an early age, Kate helped her mother in the kitchen and around the house. "We have a real helper growing up in our home. You're so lucky, surrounded by 2 loving women," Cynthia Martin said to her husband jokingly. "Yes, you 2 are my guardian angels. Without you, I'd be lost. I wouldn't even know how to iron a shirt," answered the father, hugging his wife and daughter. Robert Martin worked at a company that produced high-precision medical equipment for many years and was considered one of the most valuable specialists in his industry. If he was being honest, Roberts could probably call himself a happy person because he had a beautiful wife, a wonderful daughter, and a favorite job that made him feel complete. Unfortunately, this sweet family ideal was destroyed when Cynthia was diagnosed with cancer. It turned out that the woman hadn't been feeling well for a while, and her stomach ached all the time. But she was in no hurry to seek medical help. Therefore, when Cynthia got a full workup at the hospital, they were shocked by how strong the woman was. Apparently, she'd been enduring excruciating pain for a long time. Kate would never be able to forget her mother's sad eyes when she found out that she was terminally ill. "Mom, you'll get better, right? Will you?" Kate kept asking. She was already a teenager by that time. "Of course I'll get better, sweetheart. I'll stay here for a few days, and the doctors will let me go home," Mrs. Martin said, hiding her tears. Having heard her mother's words, Kate smiled, hoping it was true and everything really would be fine. Of course, the girl couldn't have known that as soon as she closed the door behind her, her mother burst into tears. The unfortunate woman understood everything and knew that she was highly unlikely to ever leave the walls of the hospital, which she'd come to hate over the past days. Unable to contain himself, Robert Martin visited his wife every day, never once forgetting to bring his wife Cynthia her favorite flowers. The woman loved white lilies more than any other flowers, and even being terminally ill, she got very excited over each bouquet, like a child gets excited over a new toy. Mrs. Martin had been at the hospital for about a month when the attending physician invited Robert and their daughter to his office. "We did everything we could, but the disease is progressing too quickly. Our treatment plan turned out to be ineffective. Unfortunately, medicine is powerless in your mother's case. So, I asked you to come in to give you an opportunity to say goodbye to your wife and mother." The oncologist explained the situation. Mr. Martin had a hard time restraining himself and not bursting into tears right in the office. Instead, the man took his daughter by the hand and, lowering his head, went to see Cynthia in her room. In his free hand, Robert was holding a bouquet of white lilies, which his wife loved so much. Although Cynthia tried to be cheerful and behave naturally, she could no longer hide how thin and tired she was. Unfortunately, it was the last day the Martin family spent together. Cynthia, Robert, and Kate talked about everything in the world, remembering happy moments from their past when no one was sick and everything was fine. The rest of the day flew by in a flash. Saying goodbye, Mrs. Martin hugged her daughter and whispered in her ear, "Promise me that you'll take care of your dad and that you won't abandon him if things get rough." Kate looked at her mother with eyes full of tears and whispered, "Of course, Mommy, I promise." And then it was Robert's turn, and he was already crying, not hiding his tears and not feeling ashamed in front of his daughter and wife. Hugging Cynthia, he promised her to take care of their daughter and to do everything in his power to make sure she had all she could ever need. When the nurse came into the room and said that the patient needed to get an injection, Mr. Martin kissed his wife for the last time and, taking his daughter by the hand, went out into the hall. And the next morning, Robert was informed that Cynthia Martin had died shortly before midnight. There are no words that could describe how devastated both Robert and his daughter were. Many tears were shed, and many nights were spent without sleep. If it wasn't for the help and care of his daughter, Mr. Martin probably wouldn't have been able to deal with the depression and melancholy that he was feeling after his wife's death. 5 long years have passed, full of painful memories and anxiety for the future. Putting all his energy into work, Mr. Martin achieved impressive results and quickly climbed the career ladder. All this time, Kate took care of her father and helped him in every way she could, keeping the promise she made to her mother. But now, the time has come when the young woman graduated high school and was supposed to think about college. Kate got admitted to the college of her choice and decided to become a translator. Ever since school, Kate was good at foreign languages and she dreamed of traveling around the world. Robert Martin was very pleased with his daughter's success and didn't even attempt to hide how proud he was of her. During her freshman year, Kate met Tina, who quickly became her best friend. Together, they decided to join the swimming team and dreamed of winning first places in university-wide competitions. And it was Tina who taught Kate how to meet guys and how to talk to them. "Don't be shy, Kate. Guys don't like shy girls. Be open and fun. You'll see. You'll have your choice of boyfriends," said Tina, smiling smugly. It's worth saying that Kate was actually pretty and inherited all the best qualities of her mother. Soon, everything happened exactly as Tina had predicted, and her friend got many fans. But Kate was in no hurry to start a serious relationship, since the main man in her life was still her father. Due to the success of his career, Mr. Martin often had to go on business trips, during which his daughter was worried out of her mind. The fact was that Kate always cooked food for her father's trips and also ironed his shirts, just like her mother once did. "Honey, it's time for you to think about your own life. You can't always look after me," Mr. Martin said, looking tenderly at his grown-up daughter. "It isn't hard, Daddy. You're the best father a girl could dream of," Kate answered, laughing. One day, when Mr. Martin was away on a long business trip, Tina invited her friend to go to a nightclub. Kate didn't want to go at first, using her homework as an excuse, but then she changed her mind and agreed to go with Tina. The evening went fine, except for the annoying misunderstanding with a couple of drunk guys who persistently tried to hang out with the young girls. The situation was rather unpleasant, but thanks to a bystander's intervention, the young woman got out of there just fine. "Thank you, you really helped us out," Kate whispered, looking into the stranger's eyes. To Kate's surprise, it turned out that the guy also studied at their university, only he was 2 years ahead of Kate and her friend. "Don't worry about it. I know you. You're studying to be a translator. Let me walk you home. You'll be safer this way," the guy named Justin suggested. Kate and Tina looked at each other, and then without saying a word, they laughed. Of course, they were glad to have Justin walk them home, especially since he turned out to be very interesting to talk to. Meanwhile, Tina noticed that Justin paid a lot more attention to Kate than Tina. With a knowing smile, Tina left the young people alone and went inside. To their surprise, Kate and Justin chatted late into the night and only came to their senses once the huge yellow moon appeared in the sky. After that memorable encounter, the young people started to hang out together, both within the walls of their university and outside of them. At first, it was a simple interest in each other, caused by their desire to get to know each other better. But eventually, their hanging out led to something more, filling their hearts with passion. Justin dreamed of becoming a Spanish translator and going to Madrid, where his father's distant relatives lived. The young man lived alone with his mother, and his grandfather was his father figure because his dad died in an accident. Mr. Smith was a retired colonel in the Marine Corps and raised his grandson in austerity and respect for discipline. "Someday, I will definitely introduce you to my mother. You'll see, she's really cool," said Justin, showing Kate her photo on his smartphone. "And I can't wait to introduce you to my dad. I'm sure he'll like you," Kate replied, confidently touching the guy's hand. Glancing at each other, the young couple laughed together and began to fantasize about the best way to arrange the introduction to their parents. Eventually, Kate and Justin agreed to have dinner and invite both Mr. Martin and Mrs. Taylor. Before the dinner, the young people decided to prepare their parents, who had never seen each other before. It turned out to be extremely difficult to get Robert and Linda together in one place, since they were very busy at work and it was hard for them to find free time in their schedules. Finally, the long-awaited dinner was happening. Robert Martin came to meet Justin's mom holding a bouquet of white lilies. After the death of his wife, these were the only flowers the man ever bought. Getting other flowers felt like a betrayal. "Thank you, it's so sweet. By the way, I'm crazy about lilies," Linda Taylor said with delight, unable to take her eyes off the bouquet. "Wow, white lilies? Could it really just be a coincidence?" Robert thought, shaking hands with Justin's mother. To the surprise of both parties, the evening started off naturally and easy, as if it wasn't their first meeting. They actually looked like one happy family. Robert Martin joked a lot, and for the first time in 5 years, felt an inexplicable lightness in his soul. Mrs. Taylor also enjoyed the dinner and the company. "I'm happy for you, son. You made the right choice," Justin's mom whispered in his ear. The guy smiled, and then putting his hand in the pocket of his jacket, he pulled out a velvet box. Mr. Martin caught his eye, and with a nod of approval, raised his thumb up. Justin got up from the table and, kneeling down, asked Kate to marry him. The moment was so touching that neither parent could hold back their tears. Deep down, Robert and Linda dreamed of only one thing: for their children to be happy. And now, their most cherished wish was coming true right before their eyes. Taking a furtive glance at Linda, Robert Martin was very surprised to realize that she looked like his late wife, Cynthia. And then Robert looked at the bouquet of white lilies standing in a vase and caught himself thinking that in some inexplicable way, he'd traveled to the past. After all, these flowers were like some kind of an invisible thread that passed through his entire life, and now they reappeared as if wanting to show him the way and save him from loneliness. That night at the restaurant turned out to be fateful, not only for the young couple who decided to get married, but also for their parents, who felt that they had regained love and family they once lost. Mr. Martin didn't forget his wife and continued to bring her favorite white lilies to her grave. But now he bought 2 bouquets, and it didn't upset Cynthia, who he says is watching from heaven. On the contrary, she is very happy to know that her husband is in good hands and wasn't going to spend the rest of his life alone. Now there was always white lilies in Robert Martin's house, the favorite flowers of Cynthia and his new wife, Linda.